Shalom. We are continuing our learning of Sefer Yeshayahu. We're up to Perek Lamed Gimel, and as I've said many times, a very, very difficult book, precisely because the beautiful poetic language is in itself very complicated. But even if you translate the words, we don't always know who is he talking about. Is he talking about the enemy? Is he talking about the Jews? If he's talking about the Jews, is it the 10 tribes or is it Malchus Yehuda? If he's talking about the enemy, is it the short-term enemy, Sancheriv or Nebuchadnezzar, which is a little later, or all of the enemies of the future? When he talks about redemption, is he talking about Chizkiyahu being saved from Sancheriv, or is he talking about Yemosa Mashiach and Gog and Magog? So every single pasuk, you're going to have these types of questions, these types of ambiguities. This is why the book of Yeshayahu probably has more midrashim than virtually any other book of Nach, other than the Torah itself, precisely because every pasuk is capable of all of these different meanings. So I'm going to basically try to follow Rashi with some supplementation as we go through it, but one should realize how difficult a sefer this is. So Perek Lamed Gimel Pasuk Aleph starts off with basically saying that those people who act treacherously, dishonestly, deceitfully, and those who plunder and exploit others will eventually be treated with deceit and will be plundered. We'll see in a moment who this is referring to. Hay, alas, shoded v'ata lo shadud. You are a plunderer who nobody has yet plundered. You don't know what it's like to suffer. Boged, you are a person who acts with treachery. V'lo bogdu bach, and no one has done it to you. But kahatimcha shoded, when you finish your plundering, tushad, you shall be plundered. Kan noloscha livgod, when you conclude your treachery, yivgedu bach, they will be treacherous towards you. So Rashi says this is actually a reference. I'm sorry, this is the Mitzudas. Rashi doesn't say. The Mitzudas David says this is a reference to Sancheriv. Sancheriv plundered the whole world. Sancheriv conquered, and nobody was able to conquer him. But Hashem says, at the end of it all, you will be plundered, and people will deal with you treacherously. Indeed, Sancheriv was killed by his own children. And now, Yeshayahu is not receiving messages from God, but he's expressing his own tefillas as he sees the golus, the chorban, the sufferings of Am Yisrael, and how much we need Hashem's mercy. It's almost in the middle of the nevuah. He stops to daven. Hashem chanenu. Hashem, have mercy on us. L'cha kivinu. It is to you that we trust. Heyeh zeroam labakarim. May you be our strength as we face a new day. And af yeshuatenu b'yeis sarah. And in the time of adversity and suffering and tribulation, may you be our Yeshua, our salvation. Now, Pasuk Gimel then says, Mikol Hamain, from the voices of the multitude, Nadadu Amim, the nations have wandered. Meiraima Musecha, from your greatness, Naftsu Goyim, the Goyim have been scattered. So Rashi says, this is a reference to what will happen with Sancheriv. The voice of the multitude are the thousands of angels in Shamayim that killed Sancheriv's soldiers. From the voice of those, in fact, it's brought down in the Medrash that they actually died because Hashem let them hear the Shira Samalachim. And if a Ben Adam hears the Shira of a Malach, the Ben Adam dies. So Mikol Hamain, From the voice of the multitude of angels, the nations wandered, meaning the neshamas left their bodies. From your greatness, God, the Gilei Shechina, they were destroyed. So Hashem will give us that salvation. And now the Navi talks, as it were, to Sancheriv. V'yusaf shalalchem osef hechasil. And all of the shalal that you plundered from others will be taken from you. Now, not by the Yidden, actually it was Babylonia that conquered them later. Like the locust, consume everything. Kemashak gevim shokek bo. Like the sucking of water. In other words, the mashal here is a different mashal. If you have a wall, and the wall has a crack, so the water goes through the crack, la'at la'at, until all of the water is sucked away from where it was. So there are two mishalim here. One has to be ma'ayan. One is, your spoils will be taken from you like the swarm of locusts, and the other like the cracks in a wall where all the water drains away. Niskav Hashem. Hashem is elevated and mighty. Ki shochein marom, for he dwells above the earth. Milei tzion mishpat tzedakah. Eventually, he will fill Tzion with justice and charity. So this is already a reference to Mashiach. So again, the idea is that in Yeshayahu's mind, the Mapala of Sancheriv could have been Gog and Magog, and Chizkiyahu could have been Mashiach. Unfortunately, that was not the case. So these are messianic prophecies, but Yeshayahu actually thought they would be fulfilled in his lifetime. V'hoya, and when that Geula comes, Emunas itecha, speaking to the Jewish people, Chaysein Yeshuais, Chochmas V'das, Yiras Hashem, He Eitzarai. This is actually a famous pasuk, although many people don't know the translation of it. But the simple meaning is, Emunas itecha, the faith you had in Hashem when you go through the hard times of life, Chosein Yeshuais, will be the source of your strength to experience the salvation of God. In other words, the salvation of Geula will come in the merit of your emunah in times of tzara. The emunas itecha chaysein will be the strength of your Yeshua, your salvation, your chachma, your das. Yiras Hashem, He Eitzarai. It is the reverence that you have for HaKadosh Baruch Hu that will be the storehouse that will hold all the treasures you will get in life. The Nefesh HaChaim has a whole arichas about this, in which he says that the actual wealth of a person, the chaysein is the wealth, is chachma v'das, Torah. But the Eitzar, the storehouse, preserves the wealth. It prevents it from being eaten or destroyed or robbed. So he says, without Musar, without Yiras Hashem, you don't have the Eitzar. If you don't have the Eitzar, the wealth itself is not going to be preserved. So you need Yiras Hashem to be the Eitzar for Chachma V'das. Again, that's a drush, and it's a very beautiful drush. But the simple meaning is, it's talking about Emunah being the makor of my kayach to be redeemed. So the Navi in this parak is going to go back and forth between Chorban and Geula. Hein erelim tzaku chutza, behold, when there will be a Chorban Beis HaMikdash, the angels in heaven will cry in the streets. Malachei Shalom Mar Yipkayan, the angels who hope for peace will cry bitterly when they see the Chorban of Eretz Yisrael and Am Yisrael, the Beis HaMikdash. Nashamu Mesilais. So again, these psukim b'pashas are going on Am Yisrael. The roads have been desolate, meaning no one's on the roads, no one's traveling to the Shalosh Regalim, Shavas Eiver Eirach. Travelers on the roads have ceased. Hefer Bris, Kaviyachal, Hashem seems to have annulled the bris he made with the Avais. Mo'as Orim, he has despised our cities. Loi Chashav Enesh, he doesn't consider people to be worthy. Again, this is describing Hester Panim, Golos, abandonment. Aval umlala Oretz. Aval is mourning. Aval, the land is mourning. Umlala is been cut off from its productivity. Hichbir levanain kamal. The great forests of Lebanon have dried out and been cut down. Again, describing devastation. Hayah Sharain ka'arava. The rich plain of the Sharain, which is on the Mediterranean plain, has become like the desert. V'noer Bashan b'Carmel, and the Bashan, Ever Yarden, which was very, very fertile. And Carmel just means the fertile, lush fields, have become emptied of their productivity, because both Sancheriv, Nebuchadnezzar, and later the Romans destroyed crops, destroyed land. So the Chorban, the Golos, will be devastating. But, once again, the Navi gives us a message of Geula. Ata okum yemar Hashem. But now I will one day arise, says Hashem. Ata eromeim, ata enasei. I will lift myself up, so the nations will see there is only one God, and the Jewish people are his people. Taru chashash teldu kash, ruchachem eish tochalchem. So now he's talking to the nations, right? Back and forth. Sometimes he's talking to the Yidden, and sometimes he's talking to the nations, at least metaphorically, in the poem. You have given birth to straw, or you have conceived stubble. You have given birth to straw. Your spirit of power will be eaten by the fire, meaning you nations think you're so powerful because of the devastation you inflicted on Eretz Yisrael. In fact, all you'll give birth to is nothing. V'hayu amim misrafosid. All the nations will be like the lime that is burnt in a furnace. Kaitzim kisuchim ba'esh yitzatu. Like thorns that are simply burning in a fire. Which means there will be this ultimate din b'cheshbon. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Shimu rechaikem asher asisi. All of you nations that are even far from Eretz Yisrael, listen to what I've done. Understand what I've done. U'du'u kareivim gevurasi. And those who are near, and you see it with your own eyes, you'll know what I've done. So, again, very ambiguous. On one hand, he's describing the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, which is a lesson to the Klal Yisrael, and then he's describing the Din V'Cheshbon on the Umais. Now, Pasuk Yudalid is going back to a Musar on Klal Yisrael. Pachadu b'tzion chatoim. Sinners in Sion, the sinners of Jerusalem, be afraid. Understand that your Hatzalah, you were saved from Sancheriv, but it's not going to last if you're mamshech in your sin. Ochazar ra'ada chanefem, those who engage in falsehood, should be seized with ra'ada, trembling. And you will say, Mi yagor lanu eishechela. Who can we live, or who can live in the midst of an all-encompassing fire? Mi yagor lanu mokdei olam. Who can live with a conflagration? Meaning, right now you're comfortable, right now you've been saved. There will come a time in which Hashem's anger will be an eish ochela, Mokdei Olam. And who will be able to take it? But this was not just a rhetorical question. He then answers, some people will be able to take it. People who live lives of righteousness, lives of goodness. Holech tzedakais, a person who walks in the ways of righteousness. Dover meisharim, one who speaks honestly. Moes bebetza me'ashakos, he is disgusted with oppressing people to take bribes or take away things from them. Nowhere kapav mitzmoch b'shochat. He shakes away his hands from accepting bribes if he's a judge. Otei mazno mishmo adamim. He closes his ears from hearing anything about bloodshed. So this is a reference actually to Lashon Hara, because Lashon Hara can often result in people dying, and he doesn't want to get involved in bloodshed, so he's not makabel Lashon Hara. Otse meinav meiros bara, and he closes his eyes not to see evil. That doesn't mean he ignores evil, but it means he doesn't want to have a part of it. He tries to avoid seeing corruption, seeing dishonesty, seeing tumah. Shmiras oinayim for devar erva. Such a person will be able to survive the yeshayahu of Hashem. Hu meraimim yishkain. He will dwell high in a protected way from all of the enemies. Mitzados solaim miskabo. His refuge will be the fortresses of rocks. Lachmo nitan. His bread will be given to him. He will not have to beg. Min hashamayim. He will get. Meimav ne'amanim. His water is faithful. Now again, we actually understand that in the real world, tzaddikim do suffer. And the Navi is telling us if Klal Yisrael could live by this madrega, there would be no galus, there would be no chorban, there would be no suffering. The problem is, Klal Yisrael has not lived by that madrega. There are yechidim that have, but sometimes the tzaddik is nitfas in the gezerah on the rasha. So these words of comfort may not apply on the individual level. They would apply on the collective level. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Melech biyafyai techazena einecha. A person who lives a life of righteousness will merit to see the king in all of his beauty. Again, this is actually a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to have a kesher with the beauty of Hashem's Malchus, with the Hiskalus of Mashiach. Tirena Eretz Merchakim, you will see it, even from a faraway land, even if you're in the Gullus. Hashem will bring you back, and you will see the beauty of the Melech. Chazal used this pasuk out of context to also talk about the idea that a Melech is mechuyev to look very nice, that's why he got a haircut every day, etc. But the way Rashi learns, Melech biyafyai techazeno einecha, is a reference to the Gilui Shechina. Libcha yehega ema, and your heart will be filled with reverence for Hashem. And you will ask, Ayeh Sefer, where is the counter? Ayeh Shekel, where is the weigher? One who weighs. Ayeh Sefer es Migdalim, where is the person who counts the buildings? So again, Rashi explains like this. Rashi explains that these three positions are referring to the enemy. When there was an enemy, I mean, think of the Holocaust. There were Nazis who had to count the populations. How many Jews, how many people in the concentration camps, the lineups. Shekel, the weighing of the gold and the silver that were taken from Jews. Sefer HaMigdalim, counting the buildings to determine when to blow them up. So when the Yidden were faced with Sancheriv or Nebuchadnezzar, they always had these officials that were manipulating their destruction. Sefer Shekel. But says Yeshayahu, this is a nechama, there will come a nechama, and you will ask in amazement, all of these enemies have disappeared. There is no Sefer, there is no Shekel, there is no Sefer HaMigdalim. The Navi is saying all of these things that are so real right now are simply going to be gone. That's the glory of it. They'll be garnished. Again, I have to say that other Mefarshim have a radically different interpretation, but we'll go straight forward with Rashi here. Esam nayaz leitira, this foreign nation that is oppressing you so much, there will be a geula, you won't even see them. Am imke sofa mishmaya nilag loshain bina, a nation whose language was not even understandable to you, a nation that was foreign, a nation that had no shaykhs to who you are. That nation is gone. Chazei Tzion Kiryas Mayadenu. You will see the restoration of Tzion, the city of our Yomim Tovim, of our celebrations. Einecha Tirena, your eyes will see Yerushalayim. Navei Sha'anan, you will see it as a tranquil, peaceful place. Oyel Bal Yitzan, a tent that will no longer be uprooted. Bal Yisad, that will never be moved. Yisei Dosav LaNetzach, its tent stakes are forever. Again, that's all of these is language describing the Geula, as there will never be a Churban again. V'chol chavalav bal yinateka, and none of its ropes shall be pulled away. Ki im sham adir Hashem lanu makam nahayrem yairem rechave yadayim, that God will give us rivers and streams. Again, double reference. Rivers, water, connotes fertility, productivity, agricultural cultivation. Right now, Yerushalayim does not have a lot of water. Blessed Lavai, Hashem will give it all of this water. But remember that water is also a reference to Torah and Chachma. Bal telech bo ani eshayet v'tzir adir lo yavrenu. The water will be so plentiful that even the boats will not be able to go on it. The boats of Ashur, the boats of Babylonia. Again, only Kedusha, only holiness will be in that water. Ki, and this is a pasuk we actually say in the Chazaras Hashatz of Yomim Noraim, Hashem Sheftenu, Hashem is our judge, Hashem Mechaykekeinu, Hashem is our lawgiver, Hashem Malkeinu, Hashem is our king, Hu Yoshienu, he will save us. Nitshu Havalayich Bal Yechazku. So Chavalayich, so 1 second. Again, if you imagine a boat on a river, so often in order for the boat could not always navigate within a certain rivers, you had ropes coming out of the boat, and people on the shore would pull the boat through the river until they got to the ocean or whatever it would be. So here we just said Yerushalayim will be surrounded by this powerful water, and the great ships will not be able to go through, which means the Umot HaOlam will have no Shalita. So the Navi poetically is saying to the Umot HaOlam, abandon your ropes. You will not be able to pull your ship through the holy Mayim of Yerushalayim. Kain Tornam Bal Persu. Take down your mast. Bal Parsu, you will not be able to spread your sail. You will not be able to take your ship through. Bal Parsu Nes, right. Your mast, take down your mast, because you will not be able to spread your sail. Oz Chulak Ad Shalal Marbe Pischim Bazazubaz. And then all of the spoils that you took from Am Yisrael, those who are lame, meaning those who have been hurt, those who have been harmed, Pischim, Bazazubaz, will take the spoils back. Uval Yaimar Shochen Cholisi. And the Yid that lives in Eretz Yisrael will no longer say, I am sick, I am weak. Ha'am ha'yeshev ba, the nation of Tzion, Nasu Avon, whose sins have been forgiven. So again, it's hard to know exactly. This is clearly a messianic prophecy, and it is talking about the peace and the shalom that will come to Yerushalayim. And when it says the shachen will not say I'm sick, it doesn't necessarily mean that sick people will be cured. That's a machlokas. The Rambam actually says, Limosa Mashiach, there aren't going to be miracles like that. There will still be sickness until Tchias HaMesim. But this refers more to a psychological sickness, a depression, a sadness, a hopelessness. And the Jew will no longer feel that hopelessness, for they will see the light of Hashem's great Yeshua.